Okay, for those of you who don't know me, I am CEO of The List. I am so proud to bring Megan French Dunbar's book into the world of The List. Here it is. Here's my copy. This isn't working. Look at this. This is okay. I don't have that many stickies on my computer, but I literally have 4 million tabs open and I couldn't find where I was, like even just getting ready for this call. I was like, where's the thing and the other thing and that one thing? So, Narissa says this is how her brain feels. So this book is Megan and I met. Let me just give you a quick bit of background. Megan and I met maybe a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago. We were introduced by another lister, Stephanie Natty Olson. And I love that you are a Rocky Mountain lister, Megan. You are out there in the
Holding down the fort.
yeah. Well, look, we have a bunch of you out there because I have a soft spot in my heart for the Rocky Mountains because to me, in the Rocky Mountains, anything is possible, right? The world is open and the plains are big, and you can send your mind out across the field into the mountains and see for miles. And I think that that's really an inspiring place to be. And so many of the women that I meet from the Rocky Mountains have that expansive way of thinking. And so I really appreciate that in you. And when we first met, um, you were talking about um, like you were pulling magic from the clouds. You were like trying to figure out what is this book going to be? How are you going to tell it? You know something is wrong. Who are the helpers that are going to help us all understand what's wrong with work and how do we fix it? I'm very grateful to have been included in this book. My thoughts about building community and about building connection and about tackling the loneliness epidemic in the workplace, which you know is such an important piece of our work, and I will talk about that more. And so that brings us to our launch with The List for This Isn't Working by Megan French Dunbar. I'm going to go and check and see who's in the waiting room. Megan, while you introduce yourself, please, to the crew.
Ooh. Hi. I'm so tickled that humans are here and want to hear anything about what I'm doing. And I mean, there's a professional bio that we can get into, and I'll probably talk a little bit about through my story. But um, I recently introduced myself at an event and just said, like you, I am a human just doing my best. And I feel like that right now. I'm the day after launch. I think I've gone through like the full spectrum of human emotions in the last 48 hours of all the anxiety and fear of putting yourself out there and the vulnerability and joy and excitement and got to watch both of my kids, 6 years old and 3 years old, go into the Boulder bookstore last night, and we got to see my book. And my heard my 6-year-old boy squealing like, "That's my mom's book!" and running around the bookstore. So, yeah, I'm a mom, two little ones, live in Boulder, have background in journalism, studying how to make business better. And through that, I've gotten to interview over 1,000 business leaders, which is the source of the wisdom that has built this book. So we'll talk quite a bit about it, but yeah, this is my passion. I love, love, love wonking out about business. And yeah, one of my friends told me she thought I was like the Steve Irwin of the business world, like kind of irreverent and funny and very much myself. But I love teaching people about business and about unique ways to set up management structures and all sorts of things. So we can dork out about that if you want, but I also want this to be a space where you are getting value. So if there's anywhere that you're like, hey, could you go further into that or anything, like I have zero problem with interruptions or jumping in whenever we need to.
I love that. That's so great. I do have something I'm going to cue you up for a little bit of counsel for everyone here. But first, will you tell the story of when you first realized this isn't working? Like
Yeah,
when you realized
yeah.
work was broken for women.
Mine, I mean, like all good stories, this was born from personal trauma. And mine very much was I was an entrepreneur. I co-founded Conscious Company magazine in 2015. We were picked up by every Whole Foods in the world with our first issue. I was 30. We'd crowdfunded this little magazine. I had 5 months of publishing experience under my belt, and all of a sudden was CEO of a nationally distributed print magazine and media company. And we did the full entrepreneurs, like the full journey fundraising, bringing in angel investors, seed round, friends and family, the whole thing. Sold the company in 2017. So then I was a CEO under a parent company. And I very much grew up as a high achiever and felt like my ego was very gratified. Like, look at me, I'm 33, I've sold a company, I'm doing the whole entrepreneur song and dance. And I was playing in like the upper kind of echelons of the business community and rubbing elbows with really famous business folks, and also was miserable, just patently miserable throughout most of the journey. There were some sparks of hope because I was like really doing work that I loved, but I was chronic stress, depression, anxiety. I had my first panic attack in 2017, which is that night was the reason my husband was like, I can't watch you do this. We need to figure out a solution, which is why we ended up selling the company. Um, and I hosted women only event, the World Changing Women Summit. We did it 3 years in a row. We had, hundreds of women coming in from all over the world. And behind closed doors, this was like the normal state of things. I don't know if this resonates, but it was one, we were comparing our busyness with each other as some sort of badge of honor, like talking about how exhausted we were and stressed out we were and how much we've been traveling and blah, blah, blah. And most people were just like, not happy. I very rarely met human beings who are happy, who had some sort of traditional level of success in the business community. And I was noticing it more with women, but it was gender agnostic. I mean, across the board, lots of folks were not doing well. So that was where personal stuff came. I ended up getting so burnt out that when I came back from my first maternity leave at the end of 2019, I resigned on February 1st, 2020. My last day was March 13th, and on March 17th, we were in global lockdown, and I had a 9-month-old son. So like full-time CEO to full-time mom, and complete loss of identity. Just like all of my extrinsic validation and the ways in which I thought of myself as a worthy human being and the ways in which I oriented myself to the world just gone overnight. I was about to, with my business partner, launch a in-person events company for women, gone. Um, and in that year and a half of it was like this, I don't even know. It was like a black hole of depression. And like, I popped out and was like, I want to, I want to work again. And is there a way to do it in which a way like that I'm not destroying myself? And so that was like the little piece of inspiration that sparked that concept of the book, which I was looking at this the other day when the book came out. The first Google folder was made in 2020. And so I'd been collecting little tidbits of things for 2 years. And in 2022 was the first time I put pen to paper on a proposal. And I don't know if anyone, there's a fantastic TED talk about positive psychology. And the guy, Sean, talks about how positive psychology studies the outliers. He said, we don't study folks who are contending with mental health issues. In a positive psychology, we study the outliers, the people who are thriving and happy. I was like, I want to do that, but for business. I want to study the people I know who have some sort of traditional concept of success. They've authors, entrepreneurs, like they've reached a decent level of what we think of as success in business, but they're actually happy and thriving, and or they've built workplaces where the people feel that way. And the more I dug into that, I was like, oh my gosh, this is a problem on a global scale, the likes of which I don't think we're cognizant of, with nearly 4 billion people in the global workforce. The vast majority of them are chronically stressed, burnt out, or dealing with some sort of mental or physical health condition as a result of work. And when you look at what happens, the degradation of our physical and mental health as a result of chronic stress and all these things that we're contending with, this is quite literally killing people. The way that we have set up business is destroying human beings. And so it all of a sudden became so much bigger than I would like to return back and not be stressed. It became this passion project around, I think this book is like, this is the book I wish I had had 10 years ago. And like, there are people who are doing this in a way that we need to learn from them. We shouldn't be putting the human being who's making the most amount of money, regardless of how many lives they destroy on the front cover of magazines. We should be putting these people that are building companies that make people's lives better. These are the people we should be admiring as business leaders. And so that was the very long story of how the book came to be. And I got to interview nearly 100 unique interviews just for the book, on top of the more than 1,000 interviews that I pulled up from magazine podcasting events that we did between 2015 and 2020. So wrap it up.
Um, okay, that's an amazing story. I see so many parallels in my own. I mean, you really touched on all the amazing, important things. Like when we're away from work, we lose our sense of identity. Those early years of motherhood are just such a like rug pulled out from underneath you, in so many ways: physical, mental, hormonal, emotional, relationships, um, that it's doubly hard to navigate your own sense of success and ambition because the world was not built for ambitious women, which I think actually you quoted me as saying in this book. So thank you. It's true. That's what I've built my whole career around, is like making us feel seen, right? Making um the women and non-binary folks who are outside of the traditional structures of power feel seen and increase their power together. Um, and also I love in your story the speed at which you rose, right? This like it was this frantic rise, 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 and then a really abrupt, the world is shutting down and now how am I going to make my voice heard, and this problem that you saw. Um, there was one thing you said in there though that really struck me, was this idea of happiness, how no one's happy, right? And I wonder if now looking back at having written the book and interviewed these 100 people, because I want to understand how they found happiness, but why aren't we happy? Why don't we prioritize happiness? Why do we feel like happiness is not part of the formula for success?
Yeah. I mean, there are, of course, there's going to be some generalizations in saying none of us are happy and here's why, but many people I know are not thriving, and here are some of the common elements that I discovered that everyone had in common. And for those who were thriving, something things that they did differently. Um, the two biggest factors I found are one, the way in which we think about success. And I don't know if this is true for you, but many of us in Western culture are raised as achievers. Like we tie our idea of success and ourselves having self-worth to external validation or extrinsic motivation. You're getting all the awards and the grades, and you have to be top of the class or you're captain of the teams so you can get into the best schools, you can get the best jobs, you can raise and get all the titles that you can get and get more awards and accrue as much money as humanly possible until maybe you're 65, at which point you're going to retire with as much like sitting on a mountain of money and achievements, and then you can be happy. That is the narrative I was kind of handed out of the womb and was reinforced by my peers at growing up. And there's that, and that is destroying a lot of us. And then there's the way that we've set up business, which is profit at all costs in most situations. We have over the last 50-ish years really just adopted this whole shareholder supremacy situation of profit at all costs. And the at all costs is ways in which we've set up the workplace are destroying people. And so we have both of those things coming in, and they work in direct contrast to the things that actually make human beings happy. This is like Harvard has their human flourishing lab. They have five core elements of human flourishing. They are joy and happiness, mental and social health and well-being, feeling purpose and meaning, your character or feeling in alignment with your values, and having deep social connections. And none, as far as I was coming up, none of those things registered as things I should be optimizing for in order to achieve success. Like success is over here, extrinsic factors, but these, what we're talking about, are intrinsic factors. And then when you look at our key intrinsic motivators, purpose and meaning, which is one of our human flourishing markers, having autonomy and the freedom to make choices, the ways in which we set up our workplaces strip most of us of human autonomy, and feeling like we're continually learning and growing and having some sort of sense of mastery over getting better and better at things that we care about. And these all, the intrinsic motivators and the human flourishing lab, none of those things are usually make it into people's concept of success or how they're working. And so the folks who I have met who are like, and I will tell you, like some of the names, Susan Griffin Black, co-CEO of EO Products. Has anyone met this woman?
I don't
Oh
know.
my God. She's been at the helm for 30 years. EO products like hand soaps and lotions. I usually have something sitting around here. Um, yeah, she and her now ex-husband are co-CEOs of this company. Like last time they were $500 million company, like fabulous organization. And when you meet Susan, she makes you feel calm. She's like one of those people that you walk away and you're like, I feel like I was just in the presence of someone who is enlightened, and their enlightenment made me feel enlightened. Like, she is so peaceful. She's a Zen Buddhist. She's so like thoughtful and intentional, and she listens deeply. And you're just like, this is not what a normal CEO looks like. This is not what a normal business person looks like. And I don't understand how she is the way she is. When I talk to her, how do you think about success? Nothing, nothing about the ways in which we traditionally think about achievement. It was all about deep social connection, which when we talk about the list and community and why it is so important, I mean, she was telling me that they're building their new headquarters. They produce all of their own stuff in-house, and they're building their new headquarters. CFO says we need to do this over the bridge. It's going to be way cheaper if we're down in the Richmond area. And she was like, absolutely not, because I need to be right next to my children. I 18 minutes trying to get over that bridge when there's traffic is not worth whatever money we're going to save. I will not be away from my children. If one of them is sick or hurt, I will make every single event. So everything, all of her decisions were built around having purpose and meaning, building a company that improves people's lives, building a gorgeous workplace that's filled with joy. She and her co-founder said they built a company that no one would want to retire from. The entire company is built around joy and having purpose and making people's lives better, and then deep social connections and being happy and supporting people's well-being. I was like, oh, those are in fact the same markers of human flourishing that Harvard has found. Those are our key intrinsic motivators. And so Eileen Fisher is another one. I mean, her company is, whatever anyone asks me, like top 5 companies, I'm like Eileen Fisher, like without a doubt. And they all orient themselves around different concepts of what makes us valuable and what we value in life. Again, I get so excited. And so I talk
No.
really long. You guys can like, someone
Well,
can like pop
so
a hand up and be like, you have been at it for 12 minutes, Megan.
well, so it's interesting when you talked about the woman who runs EOS, right?
EO products.
EO products. Nothing in there is like, I want to be a global supplier of hand lotions to corporate, right? Nothing says like, we want to master the Amazon retail game. We want to be front and center. She's like, my main goal is not to be front and center at um CVS, Rite Aid, and Walmart, right? That she and so did you, and even I suspect that's probably the same with Eileen Fisher, whose business is beautiful and well respected, but also not um she's not in every store, every mall. She's, she's curated and not as mass market. Was there did you talk about the tension, the inherent business tension between doing good for your stakeholders, employees, and doing good and being successful, nuts and bolts, KPI, bottom line for your employees? See, look at that smile. I've queued you up for more nerding out.
My favorite question in the world. Yes. So there's a couple of different things that I talked about. The last two chapters. One is reframing how we think about our individual success, which is everything I just talked about. So I called that one moving from social success to soul success. And then the second of those two chapters is realigning the way we think about business success, as instead of maximizing profitability the fastest amount humanly possible, it is how do we intentionally create value for society. And so there were three elements of business growth that I was looking at that were pretty fundamental to all of the businesses that I looked at, that people were actually thriving. And I mean, another one is Torani syrups. If you've ever gotten a flavored latte at any coffee shop for the last 35 years, that is 100%. I guarantee you've had Torani syrups. They're a 100-year-old company. And Melanie Delbecco, their CEO, has been at the helm for the last 34 years, 20% annual growth year over year for 30 years, about to be $1 billion company. It is not a trade-off between being a profitable large company and doing right for humans. That is a false narrative that we have, that there's some sort of, if you do these great, wonderful practices, you won't make as much money. Like, the business case is very strong. And the issue that people struggle with is short term versus long term. Because in the short term, 100% you're going to be more profitable if you're cutting people's wages to bare minimum, cutting corners on safety measures, outsourcing jobs and overworking the people at your office. Like, all of those things, like, yeah, you will be more profitable in the next 18 to 24 months. And if you want to be a long-term organization, treating your people well, helping people thrive, they help your organization thrive. Employee loyalty, employee engagement, employee satisfaction, retention, talent retention, like every single marker of the way in which we think about long-term resilience of organizations, all of those markers go up when you treat people well. And when you don't, MIT just found the number one reason that people are resigning right now, the great resignation, which everyone is blaming on entitled younger generations, the number one reason is actually toxic workplaces. It is, in fact, just this new generation is the first one and that's coming up saying, absolutely, I will not stand for this garbage. I will not stand for toxic workplaces anymore. And everyone's shocked by it, but they have options. They can leave. And they are choosing to because they have let go of the narrative that you're supposed to get a job and stay at it for 40 years until you retire, even if you hate your life the entire time.
Will you talk a little more about generations? Because this is one of my favorite, most interesting topics. I am solidly Gen X, like deeply, profoundly Gen X in all ways. And I also came up in the world as a millennial expert, right? The generation of millennials that grew up with me at 17 are now stepping into senior level positions. And at the same time, I am the mother of alphas who, who are, it's a little too early to tell what exactly they're going to be like in the workplace. But my sense is that they went to school during the pandemic, it here, right on the other side of my office. And so I think they're going to be really disconnected from the workplace. Like, I think the workplace, I can't imagine my kids being excited about going into a workplace. So, will you talk about, there's like this real tension, right, in the workplace between entitled millennials and lazy Gen Xers, or like, I don't, it's beyond. I don't even know. Like the opting out, right? The do the least, right? I think is the MO. But at the same time, like it's Gen Xers who are in corporate. I see like Daisy dying over here. She's like I see her. I see your Daisy's like, yes, this is the tension. Will you talk a little bit about that? Because you've got a really, I'm looking at the faces and the folks. Thank you all, frankly, the ones who can be on camera for being on camera so I can see your faces and like what's connecting with you. But I see Pam Sherman and Anne and Daisy and Jenny like nodding and Julia nodding along, particularly at this tension moment of generations. Will you talk about happiness and making it work for all generations in the workplace?
Yeah, and I do not want to be the like sage on the stage pretending like I'm knowing all the things. So if folks want to come off mute and jump in as a conversation, I would love any other thoughts. Um, and so I am a elder millennial and right smack dab in the middle of all this garbage. And here are a few thoughts. Well, there's one on generational stuff and then how people are making it work across the board. The first being, like I just said, instead of the like blanket, the younger generations don't work hard and are entitled overgeneralization. I don't accept that. I think it's like very uh, like disparaging to entire groups of human
Yeah,
beings.
but
Like,
also I think, I mean, I think the incentives aren't there. Like, where's the incentive to work harder? Where's the, you know, I wrote down like deep social connection. There isn't, and there's no purpose and meaning, right? If you're not making, even if you're making widgets, whatever you're making, even if you're doing data entry, like there has to be for a purpose. And if you're not delivering that on that purpose to your employees, what's the incentive for them to do any more than the bare minimum?
yeah. So that this is, like I said, with MIT's research around the Great Resignation, they found the number one reason people are resigning is toxic workplaces. And I had an anecdotal situation happen like two years ago. I was invited. There's a woman who's building the Women's Leadership Center in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. She is extraordinary. And there's an advisory group of women thought leaders that she had invited all of us to come together and help her think through the programming and how she was going to structure all this. And we all go up to Lake Geneva. And I'm without a doubt the youngest person in the room. I'm feeling very uncomfortable about like generational gaps. And the one of the women, she runs a bank in Chicago. And we had this conversation about the next generation. And she said, so all of the younger people at my bank are demanding work-life balance. They're demanding well-being. I had to kill myself to get to my position. And I don't understand why they don't feel like they have to pay their dues as well. And I was like, I'm gonna stop you right there. Because yes, every single generation of women that is above you 100% went through some shit. They went through something worse than you did. That does not mean that you want it to be that bad for the next generation.
Right.
And that type of thinking that I had to go through it, so you need to go through it is like, where does that get us? Like, why are we pretending that it sucked that we all had to go through the respective trauma that we did in the workforce to get to the things that but we're attempting to make progress for everyone so that they don't have to go through all the crap that we went through. So this like narrative that I went through this, so they need to do this, they need to pay their dues. It doesn't feel fair that they're not having to contend with the same realities that many of us did. And we should want better for the next generations. And so when I brought up that point, she and I did not see eye to eye. And but I was like, it's this type of thinking that is making folks blanket statement say that the younger generations are entitled and don't want to work as hard, is that they're one of the first generations that's willing to stand up and use their voice and say, the way that you are setting up the workplace is not okay. And we're not used to hearing that. We're not because we have like a lot of hierarchy, command and control, structural organizations where you are told when, if you're in a lower position, you are told what to do, where to do, who to do it with, when to do it by, and you do not question your superiors. And the younger generation is coming in and they are questioning their superiors. And that is a tension that we're not used to. And so, and because as humans, we are like, taught trigonometry and not basic listening and communication skills in school. There's a lot, we feel like defensive around the ways in which, because, oh, wait, you're not supposed to be criticizing the way that I'm leading because you're in a lower position. And so this is some of the dynamics that I am like, I think we have a lot to learn from the younger generations. I think when
Yes.
people complain about the ways in which things are being done, or if there's feeling entitled because they're demanding things from you, that's a time to sit down and listen and be radically curious and actively listen to what are they trying to say? What is it that they need? Gayla Jennings O'Byrne, Walkstar Capital, if anyone knows her, she was telling me, so she was at JP Morgan Chase for her entire financial career, decided this version of success is not making me happy when she was undergoing surgery when she had breast cancer and said, made a pact with a higher purpose, higher entity that if she made it through her cancer, she was actually going to do what she wanted to do, which was start a fund for underserved and underrepresented founders. So she has done that and started doing it the way, building the business in ways which she'd seen it done throughout her career, and then had the revolutionary idea one day when she was about to re-up all of their health plans and give them the gold star coverage. She was like, wait a second, I'm going to ask them what they want. Like, I am going to listen to the human beings that work for me and ask them what they want. And she did so in an all staff meeting. And they were like, no, 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 no. Health insurance is good. If we have extra money, we want a matching travel fund. And she was like, oh, and it cost the organization less to do the matching travel fund. And her employee engagement and loyalty is through the roof because people have more autonomy and feel like they're being listened to and they have voice and choice. So, like, that is where organizations have a lot to learn from the younger generations is like, every single human being alive wants to feel heard and listened to and seen. And when we set up organizations where they don't, they're going to feel frustrated and disenfranchised. Just listen. It takes more time and it's frustrating to hear a lot of perspectives, and that's how you build great organizations.
There's a bunch of amazing comments in the chat here about protecting structures that are broken. How could we ever progress? Nidhi said if we are protecting broken systems. Jenny Magic says, I found that the pay your dues folks, I like to call them I walked up the hill in the snow both ways, miles, that they are not happy in their current reality. And right, she says, and when we focus on what they would want to change and who has permission to ask for change, they're happier to let others thrive. I think the other thing is you're talking is I'm really struck by the difference between curiosity and defensiveness, right? And that maybe there's some piece of this that is you think that when you're the boss, that it's this old idea and that of like the lone wolf, right? You must take all responsibility. You must make all the right decisions that um your that really the secret is collaboration and curiosity, and that's how you get to a better workplace. That's my sense of what you're saying. I want to ask you one more of my favorite questions, and then I'm going to let everybody jump in and ask you their questions. But so as we're talking about generationally, the other piece of the puzzle that I want to help unlock, and because I know this whole book is for women, but um, if you could give us like a prescription, what is diagnosis? The systems of success are not set up for women to succeed in the workplace. So what's your prescription? What can we do as women in the workplace? But also what can we do to set up our workplaces in the right way? If we only did one thing, like I know the whole book, buy the book, buy the book. I put the link here. I'm putting the link in the chat right now. Buy the book and then do these two things for ourselves and for our employees.
Oh my gosh. That feels big.
I
Um,
never.
I feel like from the personal standpoint, at some point along my journey, I made the shift from um, maximizing and optimizing the number of things I was doing to maximizing and optimizing, not even maximizing, optimizing my quality of being. And this is something that there's a statistic 70% of workers say that their manager has as much or more of an impact on their mental health than their spouse does.
Mm,
Also, psychologists have found that your what they call weak ties, which are your coworkers, people you work with, have as much of an impact on your mental health than your strong ties, your friends and family. All of this to say, the way you show up matters.
mm,
If you are a leader, it matters tenfold. If you have people who are working under you, you are modeling how to be, what behaviors are expected. They are looking to you to model how they should, in fact, follow. And when we're modeling over busyness, stress, chronic stress, I'm so busy, I'm working after hours, I'm sacrificing my friends and family, and I don't see my children and all the things, that is what they, in fact, are going to think they need to do as well. And so shifting from optimizing for productivity and busyness and doing the most to optimizing for your quality of being and whatever that needs to be for you. There's a ton of practices that are in the book that folks helped me understand around optimizing. But I mean, like a very simple one for me, saying no. Like, where I have like every single birthday invitation for both of my children always comes to me because I am the mom and all of our social engagements and I'm supposed to do all the parties and all the like there's all the social pressure and expectations of patriarchy telling women that we have to do that, all the household shit. And then we get into the business community where, in fact, because men ran it for 3,000 years and then we popped in the last 50-ish, we're automatically assumed incompetent until proven otherwise. We have to prove ourselves and our worth. We have to, everything we have to do, we have to go above and beyond. And so in both realms, we're expected to do more. And it is never enough and we never feel good enough. So it is saying no. I say no all the time and I'm just feel fantastic about it. So that is on the personal side is like just the mindset shift for me of what you need to do to optimize the quality of your being. And at work, holy crap. Um, I mean, I think the lowest hanging fruit for any single human being is what I just talked about is listening. Susan Griffin Black, my Shiro, says one of her quotes from the book that I was like, I should just have this like tattooed on my forearm is the purpose of listening is to reduce suffering.
that's
Like,
amazing.
Jesus. I told you she's enlightened. And she like one-on-one meetings, checking in with people to see how they're actually doing at the start of a meeting. I mean, I used to every single quarter sit down with every single one of my employees and just ask five very simple questions around how are you doing? Is there anything that's getting in your way of thriving right now? Or is there anything you want to tell me about how you feel the business is going? Are there any challenges that you're contending with that I don't know about? And what else should we talk about? And the nuggets of gold that came out of those. I mean, I had 8 employees and I had one single human leave in the entire 5 years we were in business. And she did so to go on a walkabout for 2 years, literally around the world. I never lost another employee. I had the highest employee satisfaction rates that we had a third party auditor come in and I listened like whatever role you're in, listening to people, and it's actively listening for what they're actually saying and really digging deep is one of the better ways to begin building a better workplace.
I love that. Amazing. And in fact, I'm about to um Julissa and I have set time aside this afternoon for our review process. And so it's like what you've just said is comes at exactly the right time, the listening. I am going to open it up to, usually I ask you to put your chats in the conversation, but I'm going to open it up to voices because I feel like we're a nice group. And because I know that there are many experts in this space in this space. So I don't know. Who wants to unmute? Don't even bother raising your hand. Just jump in. Pam Sherman, raise your hand and is going to jump in.
Megan, thank you for writing this book. It's so nice to
Thanks
meet
for
you virtually.
sharing with your community.
Um, so we've all heard all these things for a long time that, you get a greater ROI with purpose, meaning, and then more women on boards are going to make a difference. Do you think the women CEOs that you might have interviewed were, come to this with a different point of view? Is there any research that women leaders are leading the charge in this kind of workplace? And second, how do we get our allies, to change and this is probably all in the book. I can't wait to dig in. But I guess the first one's the most important. What's the research on the gender differential on women leaders who are leading in the way you're talking about?
Yeah. Oh, I'm like, I don't want to take up the entire rest of this talking about this because I get like so into the research on this, but there is tons of research around women being better leaders that's come out recently. And this is one of my favorite topics to firmly disagree with, which pisses everyone off. But here is why. Because what this research is in fact showing is that when humans have a wide range of healthy character traits, instead of bifurcating them between masculine and feminine, but just healthy ones, compassion and confidence, being able to be decisive and being vulnerable. It is this like gorgeous wide range of healthy masculine and feminine. That's the best leadership. And there's toxic qualities that are considered feminine and masculine as well. But women, we're often raised kind of, here's your feminine skills, this is what you want to do. And then we get into the business world and we have to adopt masculine ones. And so we're just like more bilingual, that we speak all of the character traits. And that's why we are showing up as being better leaders. And we do a disservice to men saying that they can't, in fact, be compassionate and they can't be vulnerable and they can't listen. And all of these extraordinary leadership traits that they have, for the most part, as they're growing up, been shamed when they express. And so the I have seen a ton of incredible leaders of all genders leading different types of organizations that embody a lot of this stuff. I have seen more women doing employee ownership, profit distribution, setting up kind of autonomous organizations, like those sorts of things. I'm seeing it more with women leaders. I did have a podcast host the other day ask me if I knew any male run employee owned brands. And I was like, Bob's Red Mill? Like, I think that like I can give you 20 women off the top of my head. Um, so anecdotally, I'm saying women are kind of driving the charge of shifting the workplace in this way. And I've seen Chip Conley as one of my favorite leaders of all time. There's been some extraordinary men that are leading the charge who really have that wide spectrum of character traits. And when they do, they really lead into this type of, um, oh, Bob Chapman, Barry Waymiller, if anyone knows it, fabulous. Um,
Thank you.
Lauren, I saw you come off mute, I think.
Lauren Rotolo, can we get you? Lauren is
Hi.
hi. You're
Hi.
press-
How is everybody? Um, this was such a great conversation. Thank you, Anne, for inviting me. This is completely in my wheelhouse. As currently contracting in a startup, you find a lot of people coming into the workplace and a lot of people coming, and how do they grow in their careers, and I've seen so much change from a leader, not as much from the leader, but from the leader of this company having to almost comply
Mm.
with the change. And I think that that's very interesting. So for an example, she has always had an executive assistant, And we know from the past that executive assistants did XYZ. Well, this executive assistant, who's in her lower 20s, says, no, I won't do this, this, and this. And the CEO, who is a female, who is a very strong female and has much discuss, has had to comply and has had to change her ways of how she uses her, right? And how she speaks to her, and had to balance what that role looks like. And so I think that it's also what I have seen is a shift in the conversation from C suite and a shift in how they've had to lead based on the employees that they've hired. Because, their goal is to hire as many millennials as possible. And those millennials are really changing the trajectory of how they want to work. Therefore, the C suite needs to shift.
I like that.
Yeah.
Lauren and I had the privilege of working together many, many years ago. And so she's a big coalition builder.
Yeah.
And community builder.
Thank you. So, I wonder, is there any of that in your book of how, shifting the landscape really of the workplace based on culture and hires?
Yeah, not necessarily to the intergenerational point, but I will say to the more people are, and I hate saying demanding because again, that pulls people back into this kind of entitled, but the more people are requesting or inviting leaders to step into a different way or leaving toxic organizations to go work for purpose-driven organizations or organizations that are doing things in a better way, that is in fact this beautiful shift that I'm seeing of leaders are starting to pay attention as to why some of these organizations are really thriving. Asana is one, the project management. They're a conscious leadership organization. If anyone's ever read 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership, that book just changed my entire life. And the Conscious Leadership Group worked with the two co-founders, two men, Dustin Moskovitz and Justin Rosenstein, Dustin and Justin, white guys from Silicon Valley, who full scale adopted conscious leadership approach. And when I was talking to Diana Chapman, who is one of the co-authors of 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership for my book about her book and Asana, she said that they onboarded nearly, it was like almost 3,000 people into Asana's conscious culture. And she said vast majority of them had sometimes like six-figure level differential between the salary that they were making at Asana or that they could have been having at Google or Facebook or some of these other places. And they were like, nah, I would 100% rather make less money and work at a conscious organization. And so you're seeing that sort of shift where now, because Asana is doing it and it's these big tech guys that are actually bringing it in, other leaders are like, like the meerkat, they're looking over and being like, wait, like we're losing employees to Asana. What are they doing differently? And that is shifting the way that some leaders are going. Some people are just, we're going to have some toxic leaders making the most amount of money possible and getting rewarded for doing such. Like that's where we have one
That
foot
won't
in late
change.
stage capitalism and one foot in this new way of capitalism. And so that's going to be hard to shift one of the largest structures on planet Earth that impacts pretty much all life on Earth. But it's happening.
I do think, I want to note and thank you, Julia. I had a typo in my little section. I was like,
I saw your
often
little correction there. I
every
love it.
leader, yeah,
Yeah.
not every leader, but we often forget that. And I think Megan, I really appreciate the lens that you're applying to this work. And I love the question about intergenerational pieces because it's pretty much like what everyone is struggling with internally. And most organizations right now are struggling with such deep tensions internally of managing the rapid change just in the last 8 months alone, political environment, tech, AI, right? It's just there's that tension in of itself. So to Megan's point, right? Like toxic stuff was already happening. We already had bad people or just stressed people. And now we have people that are under even more stress, making unclear and impossible decisions every day. And this is where these practices and frameworks are helpful. This is where, yes, in the industries and sectors, when people do have the power and privilege to walk away, that can shape cultures. But let's not forget, there's a whole swath of workers that can't do that.
Yeah.
And so we can't rely on only that to drive change, but also having worked like many of you in some of these massive companies, we know that there's always these microcultures within organizations, right? I'll just say it, we're in the list, right? I was like, Disney, I worked at Disney, right? It wasn't magic and pixie dust. It was like all the madness that can pick, and it still is. Like there's still every time that I see and that I know of the decisions they're making, I'm like, what is wrong with you? Right. But there are still microcultures within of really incredible humans who protect and take care of each other and show kindness and humility. And I do believe that that can drive systemic change. And so that's why books like yours are so important. Conversations like these are so important because we can't, like sitting on the sidelines and just going like, this is never going to change. This is never, that's just, change. We have to believe change is possible to be able to drive change. So anyway, this is like so much I could say about this, but that from this, that's a bit of what's driving me and where that place that I sit in right now, where it's cute to read all these memes. And yes, I tell my daughter all the time, she's an alpha, and the Gen Zs, like all of these things that they're writing about work. And I was just like, and work, and like, let's make fun of work, whatever. I'm like, all of that is funny and cute and true. And I'm glad, and you can drive some change, but also getting shit done inside these organizations is hard work. And I'm like, and we need to marry the two. And that's why it's like, you can active, you can be an activist, you can do all these things. Right. And I was like, but also there's got to be people that are in it
Yes.
to drive this change. And that's why, thank you, Megan. Books like yours are helpful to, just try and get broad swaths of people to think about, how do I want to show up as my best self? How can I do that so I can help others do that as well?
Yeah, the Leaf Sharp, she is a Harvard professor. She does an entire, she has a whole program on entrepreneurship and change making within organizations. And I was just doing a workshop with Coach and Kate Spade with their Women's Employee Resource Group. And one of the women was like, well, I'm just like a mid-level manager. Like I have no power here. And I was like, you have so much power there. Like to be a mid-level manager at Coach, like every single room you walk into with your team, with everyone else, when you are modeling a better way of being, you get to inspire all of those people at that publicly traded company to aspire to something better. Like, I am a huge advocate for modeling change inside organizations, especially ones that need the change.
I want to wrap this up and get everybody to their 2 o'clock meeting. One of the things that Meghan did in the lead up to her book, between the time she interviewed me and the lead up, was she sent me an email that I suspect she sent to everybody that said, "You have helped me so much. How can I help you?" And I really was so stunned by it. I was like, "Oh, nobody asked." Like, no, that's amazing. But I didn't have an answer. So I will still get back to you because I am working on my answer. However, Meghan, here we are. It's your book launch, #1 on Amazon. All of those links, yeah, all of those links that I just put into the chat are will count towards the New York Times bestseller list as well. What can we do for you? What is our walk away from this meeting?
I mean, buy the book, share the book, review the book. Especially if you have folks who are like women's employee resource groups or culture leaders or folks who have a fantastic voice at their organization. Sharing it with those folks is huge. But yeah, I mean, I gave up completely on the like, I'm gonna get this to a big name influencer and it's gonna go viral. And we just went pure grassroots, like just person to person. And it has been a fantastic strategy. So like connection, people you think will resonate with it. And please, please, please reach out to me and talk to me. I've connected like Lindsay, I've talked to you already. Like I love Daisy, I'm gonna talk to you soon. I love talking to humans and getting to know people. So help me do that better.
I love that. Thank you so much. You are an amazing community member, community leader. I'm excited about this book. We will post to the whole list community and on our socials for everyone to buy the book.
Thank you.
And my fingers are crossed for you.
Thanks for being here, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Megan. This
everybody.
was great.